Welcome to episode 70 of the Sports Marketing Machine podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Neisser. Today, I sit down with Robbie Lightfoot from Box Out Sports. We talk about Box Out Sports, how teams and universities are using it to create content for social media faster, which is something we all need to do. We talk about use cases, fan engagement, selling tickets, and so much more in this action-packed episode. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Sports Marketing Machine podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Neisser. This is the podcast for those working in sports looking to level up their marketing skill set so you can sell more tickets, grow your fan base, and have a blast while you're doing it. And today, very excited to welcome Robbie Lightfoot from Box Out Sports. We're going to talk about what Box Out Sports is, how it helps sports teams, and all the fun and stories behind it. So Robbie, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jeremy. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so let's just start off. What is Box Out Sports for those teams and folks who are tuning in who have never heard of it? What is it?
Sure. So basically what Box Out is a social media graphics solution. It's all online. So URL based and allows sports information directors and athletic comms individuals to quickly and easily create content that they can then share that to social media to help promote games, student athletes, ticket sales, all the things in between. So something that would take you maybe 20, 30 minutes in Photoshop takes you no more than a minute to get that out there.
So you've got templates in there. Your team creates some really beautiful templates for teams to be able to use. So it's drag and drop, super simple, right?
Yeah, I mean, we want to get you to the finish line a lot faster. As anybody that can attest as an SID and athletic communications individual, it's a fast-paced job. And we have the corny kind of tagline, graphics at the speed of sports, just because we know it is fast. And really what is important is as soon as there's a game, a score update, if we can do anything to get you to the finish line faster and easier, that's what we're going to do. So our templates are about 85% of the way done. You know, you can upload your logo, your colors, photo, and then get that generated out quickly. And then you can go start to see the fruits of your labor, which is the retweets, the shares, the likes, and the fan, engagement is what really is important. So that's kind of how we do it. We don't want to reinvent, some type of a version of Canva and Photoshop. We want to make something unique that allows SIDs and athletic comms something that they can create quick.
Absolutely. So the origin story, if I recall, you built this out of necessity to help yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy how it started, but I was, in the sports information space about 12 years ago at a small NAIA school. And when you have a limited budget, as many really as all of us do, what we found is that we're trying to highlight these teams and student athletes and really trying to do it in a way that makes them feel important and valued. And I just couldn't do it fast enough. So as I was trying to score updates and make game days and things like that, as I did it, they turned out great. I could dabble in Photoshop, but I just couldn't make it fast enough where if the game is over and I post something, then basically what happens is people already knew what the score was. So, but if I could post it quicker and easier and then go on to my many other responsibilities, then I could actually get what my fruits of my labor, which was the retweets and the fan engagement, rather than, spending a half an hour after the game and making something really cool. I could actually get something done faster and start to see those retweets and likes. So really what we did is I actually had a friend of mine. We kind of put our heads together and said, how can we make this, quicker and easier? And we started to dabble with, making the template ahead of time, and that still wasn't working. So we decided, what's a way that we can automate it, right? Let's just make it so that they can almost fill in at the time, almost like an Excel spreadsheet. And then from there, it actually generates the graphic. And then that kind of went on to me using it in other conference venues. And then as I was in that gym, those SIDs were like, well, how are you making it so much faster in my own gym? And I'm like, I just kind of scooted my computer over to the scores table and said, here's what I'm doing. And they said, would that be something you would sell? And I just I didn't even think about it really. I thought, let's give it a go. And then from there, I kind of went from being an SID to it just grew in popularity so much that Now I get to help SIDs, which I love because I can speak the language, I know the need, and then from there we've just grown and added more templates and things and more useful enhancements and features that just makes it a lot faster and easier for SIDs because I truly have a heart for it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I love stories like this where you built it to solve a problem that you had. Then all of a sudden, other people raised their hand and said, "Hey, I've got that same problem," right? So
Yep, exactly
anytime
right.
you do that, you know you're hitting the nail right on the head. So I'm kind of curious in the beginning when teams and schools and universities were approaching you and saying, "Hey, can we use this?" How did you price it in the beginning? Because obviously you've got pricing now and it's set at a specific amount to kind of let everybody use it. But how'd you price it in the beginning?
Yeah, so we actually didn't stray too far from our budget. So even in a world of inflation and price
Mm-hmm.
increases, we've actually kept it the same, which is pretty incredible because I
That's
just knew
awesome.
SIDs had a very limited budget, but I didn't want to limit the school that maybe a small NAI or a junior college for that matter, or even D3s, and have limited resources to be like, well, that's not fair. I really want to highlight my teams, but I don't have a budget to do it. And since I have such a strong heart, we kind of priced it at what normally does an NAI budget look like? What does an NCAA Division III and JUCO budget look like? And then how can we price it from there? So that's where we kind of landed on. You could do it $60 a month, or for me, it was important to make it less than $500 for a whole annual subscription. And so as I met with now, there's many of us on our team. That was the vision, is saying let's just make sure we can make this as affordable as possible, and that way everybody wins, where they can highlight their teams and student athletes, and it doesn't come down to you have to have X in your budget or else you're kind of out. We never wanted to do that.
Yeah, I love the fact that you level the playing field. I think the NAIAs and the JUCOs, Division threes, and even Division twos to an extent,
Mhm.
uh, don't get these same opportunities from a budgetary perspective and graphically. So you just level the playing field. So I love it. I mean, it just every student athlete in sports, either in professional sports, if you're playing professional sports, or even college athletics, should feel appreciated and loved, and box out makes you look that way when you present it on social media. So I love it. It's marvelous. Let's talk about like use cases. So let's pretend I'm a university or even a professional sports team, either way, but let's just pick, I'm more University of Pacific today. So I'm University of Pacific. I'm the SID for some sports teams. What are some use cases that I could use?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've actually found out was, since we're actually based out of South Bend, Indiana, we're right really close to Notre Dame. Our offices are only about 5 or 6 blocks from campus. So when we first started, this will now be year 11 for Box Up, but when we first started, we wanted to actually seek wise counsel. So we went to Notre Dame and we sat down with their athletic comms and we said, here's the vision, here's what we have so far. Could you use something like this? And at the time, they were thinking, let's just give it a whirl. And they actually did their homework and they said, okay, what they were specifically looking for was fan engagement. They wanted to see if posting a graphic faster could actually result in more fan engagement. So they were trying to prove the theory. So they said, yes, let's get Box Out going. And then let's see if actually posting a graphic will get our fans to retweet, share, like more, as opposed to us having a graphic maybe queued up or a score update that's posted a couple minutes after. And what they shared with us after they were done, they went through all of their social media accounts and found that they had a 33% increase in overall fan engagement. So the shares, the likes, the retweets went, through the roof when they were coming to that, which then made everybody win, because then what they did was then they actually started to sell it to their ticketing provider to have their logo as like the sponsor area on their graphic,
Mm-hmm.
and they could show the data points by saying, hey, look, this not only jumped in overall followers, but it actually jumped in more people are sharing it, liking it, which then it turns to just more eyeballs on that. And as potential sponsors can look for that, it became a revenue generator. And so we took full advantage of making sure we have areas for sponsor logos. So that way you can sell these and get very creative. So that was one quick case study that I know Notre Dame shared with us. And then it just kind of proved the theory of what we had was, people really aren't looking for a Photoshop Canva like solution. They want something quick
Mm-hmm.
and easier. And then there also always is Photoshop that allows you to do some pretty cool one-off things, and we don't ever
Hmm.
want to take away from graphic designers or their creative minds, but we actually want to take a little bit of that load off their shoulders. So while they're focusing maybe on one sport during that season, they don't have a coach saying, hey, I have a recruit coming on campus, can you make me a graphic? And they can say, well, I can't right now, but feel free to sign into Box Out, and you can do that. And that way their day-to-day responsibilities are lightened. So that way everybody kind of wins between the creatives and as well as, individuals that are just trying to make a graphic really quick.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I love the additional use cases that you mentioned there. So recruits are on campus. You need to come up with a cool image for them. You can do it really quickly. You've got starting lineup. You've got game updates, game tonight. What are some other templates that are in there?
Yeah, I mean, schedules are a big one. So if you could do an
Mm,
upcoming schedules, or even, I mean, we can go crazy. So we have, home run trackers that they can put the ball or softball in left, right field, wherever the ball was hit, and
mm.
it'll exit through. And sort of really cool animation, motion graphics where, SIDs can record a team running on the field or take photos from the sideline, upload those and use them right within your graphics. I think it's always fun to have graphics that actually have events from the game, rather
Mhm.
than recycled from a previous game. So, but yeah, I mean, there's tons of those GPA graphics and graduation stuff, even the occasions and holidays that I know a lot of people, especially SIDs, are responsible. Like, all right, now I have to make graphics for all of these teams to say, Merry Christmas or Happy Thanksgiving or things like that, or we have Memorial Day and 4th of July. So this way they can actually empower their coaches or GAs or student workers with their own unique URL, like their own login to their own page, and they can say, "Hey, look, I don't have the time to make 500 birthday graphics for all of our student athletes, but you guys are more than welcome to log into Box Out, and there's tons of different graphics you can use. Feel free to do that, and that way it just gets delegated where." You're not jeopardizing your brand standard because, again, colors, logos are locked in. And that way you can't have a team go rogue. It seems like there's always somebody who does their own thing or knows somebody dangerous enough in Photoshop to say, this doesn't look like our look. This doesn't look like our logo. They've manipulated stuff. So branding is really important, but then they can delegate it. So there's a ton of different templates, and we're always adding more. And then that way we want to make sure that we can keep content fresh and new for everybody throughout the course of the season.
I love that you manage the expectations of the coaches, because if one coach receives something that another one doesn't, it's an all-out war. And
Well,
I've been there.
it
And
is.
God, yeah, it's just so marvelous that they want what they have. They want to provide for their student athletes, but oftentimes the expectations just keep going up and up and up.
It does. Yeah. And it's a great, I mean,
Mm.
it really is, Jeremy. I mean, you hit the nail on the head because, I mean, a lot of times as SIDs, we always hear, well, you give football or basketball more attention, or this team, is normally in the postseason all the time or doing well in conference. So they get a little bit more attention than our program. Well, now you can give them a login and say, hey, look, like, maybe I don't have the time to focus on all of these teams, but now I'm empowering you to highlight your teams and student athletes and even your prospective student athletes however
Mhm.
you want. So feel free to log in. Anything you create, go ahead and do it. To another case study, I know Georgetown, so the Hoyas, what they've done is they say anything that they create in Box Out, those coaches can post it right away. Anything they post in either Photoshop or Canva or any other party, they actually have to get approval before posting. So because their fonts and logos are all set in Box Out, they can't mess it up. So they give them the green light to say, post it whenever you'd like. And
Mhm.
I know as you, as a former SID, can also attest. I mean, we've all been there. Sometimes we've been statting games. We're doing for this may not make sense for like SIDs at the Division 1 level, but you're also doing like the walk up music. You're doing the
Uh-huh.
announcing, live stats, the scoreboard. You're doing
The
all those at
scoreboard,
once.
yep. Uh-huh.
And then you'll also have a coach pop in and say, "Hey, I have a prospective student athlete coming on their official visit tomorrow. Can you make a
Mhm.
graphic for me?" And you look at him, you're like, "I'm not an octopus, man. I can't do it all." So he's like, "I only got so many hands." So that's when you can say, "Coach, I can't right now," but that's why you can hop into Box Out and do it. And that's really cool to see how these coaches have really embraced the recruiting catalog that we have of all these cool things they can make from. They can put their kids' names on shoe boxes and put, if it's Nike or Adidas or Under Armour on it. I mean, they can do some really cool things that they're not designers. They don't really know
Mhm.
how they would start to make that, but they can now do that for anybody, and it takes them no more than a minute. So that way everybody wins.
Yeah, I love the perspective too, because you've been in the shoes of the SID. You're at a softball game, you're doing the public address announcing, you're doing the walkout music, you're doing the line score, you're doing the stats on the computer and tweeting updates. Like you're doing all of it. So if you've been in those shoes, you know what it's like. But me just explaining that probably gave anxiety to people.
Yes, and then there's always the crossover season, right, where you have,
Yep.
fall is now trickling into winter sports, and then vice versa and into fall sports, and now you're, a one person shop, and now you have all these sports that are starting and doing all their thing as one's finishing up, the others are beginning, and yeah, so God bless everybody who's doing the crossover season because it is a nightmare and it can definitely create anxiety to your point, and that's really why we created it. We want to take away some of that anxiety because graphics, I mean, literally the last 10 years, it just fell into the laps of SIDs. So they
Yep.
said, all right, sports info, you get graphics. This is now one thing. And they're not paying us more with the budgets that we have.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really giving us more budget. So they're just saying, hey, figure it out. And also, we want to look just like Clemson and we want to look like all these other Power Fives. And you're like, I mean, I can't really do that. So hopefully this solution can help kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, I love it. It definitely helps bridge the gap. And then also in professional sports, when there may be a one media relation person who has to do stats, who has to do kind of the tweeting during the game and the updates during the game, maybe handle a lot of the media relation duties. You've got some PR things as well. You're working with radio stations and trying to get your athletes on there and TV, all these different things that are part of that role. This just helps them speed the process up so they can focus on some of the other things. Not to take away, because fan engagement is huge, but this is another pieces for professional teams as well that makes it easier for them.
Yeah, many MILB teams. So at the minor league level, those professional athletes, I mean, they're in the same boat where they have maybe one person. But the cool thing is, I mean, a lot of times they're actually giving this to the radio announcer who's doing all the,
Mm,
and so he's on the team bus going everywhere. So they give him access or her access, and they're going to any of these ballparks. And as they go to break, they're updating a graphic so that way their fans and followers who can't make it to those games, because not many people are going to road games for their favorite MILB team. It's normally going to their home stadium. So that way they can actually do that for them, or they'll just give it to an intern or summer work that's coming in where they can do it. And really, I got to say, Jeremy, it's really cool how these MILB teams that we have really created their own specific, like almost like business model or generating revenue off of the
mm,
different templates that we've created. So they'll take a game day graphic and make it into like a weather update and then sell that to the local, weather station.
mm,
Um, but then for the same road, they'll have a starting rotation or a weekend rotation and sell that to a different partner. So they're really utilizing it rather than spending $100 on a banner or something that's going to hang there. They're actually saying, well, we could actually not even have to worry about any banner costs and have anything looking. We can keep our outfield walls a little cleaner, or we can just add one more
mm.
sales component to this and do everything digital. So they kind of create their own, packages and generate revenue using Box Out, which is awesome to see how creative they get to help with that. So they'll have, their game day will have their ticket provider, or they're using it to help drive ticket sales. And that's what's really, really cool to see how creative people get with these different templates, because we made them flexible enough to that way you can use them for any need.
Yeah, I think that's so great about that. And you're right. Having been working in minor league baseball specifically, I think they're some of the most creative salespeople that you'll ever meet, because they come up with just the zaniest ideas. And I can remember just a quick little story. We were one night after a ball game, we said, you know what, we're going to do Bark in the Ballpark. How crazy would it be if we brought in the Baja Men to sing Who Let the Dogs Out? And before you know it, we got it sold and sponsored. And it's like, man, who would have thought that idea? But that's what you have in minor league baseball. Just the creativity is unbelievable.
Yeah, and now you see them going one step further, where now they're actually playing like the ring, the doorbell tones, just to get the dogs to bark at everything. So it's just
Yep.
awesome. I just love the whole vibe of minor league baseball is so fun. And actually, I mean, before that, I was actually working for a minor league affiliate here in South Bend, the South Bend Cubs, and it was great because I got to kind of be in that world too, which it's so fun, full of creative people, and that's we even in the college space, take full advantage of what we see and what works, what doesn't work, and we can easily apply it to the sports area in the collegiate space.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about promoting events, using Box Out to help promote an event. So best practices here. So we've got a game. Today is Wednesday. We're recording this on a Wednesday, and we've got a game on Saturday. What are some templates in there that we could use to help promote the game, to try to get people to buy tickets? What are, if you've got best practices or use cases, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's a variety. I mean, the cool thing is, I mean, normally game days are probably what you're going to be posting for a game on that day. But if you're leading up to it, we have some graphics that are actually like that says like ticket punched, but they're actually ones that if if they win in conference and they're going to nationals or whatever. But really, what we've seen a lot of these teams do is, leading up to the game, actually having that ticket punch graphic. It basically looks like a bunch of scattered tickets, and they can actually use that. And if they want to include a photo of a student athlete or a different one, they can. But actually proactively doing it ahead of time to help generate and sell those tickets. Even if you guys have a digital ticketing provider to actually make it so that you can have the URL based on there. We've already seen about almost a 10% increase that if you actually post a graphic that has a digital ticket URL in there, it'll actually increase your overall ticket revenue throughout the course of the year. So that way, just having something proactively leading up to the game, as people may change it, they may scroll on Twitter different times of the day. So making sure, if Wednesday it's in the morning, maybe Thursday it's in the late afternoon or the evening. Friday you may have a different time of day, and then Saturday again that morning. But the more you can post a graphic and include that ticket URL, or at least just make it on their mind. So if they don't have a ticket provider, that's okay. But if they want to, just to make sure it's always on the eyes. I always personally say you can never post too much. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's there. So feel free to get the information out. And if you need to get the information out 4 or 5 different times, just uniquely, we got plenty of templates to do that where you can go ahead and post that content out quickly. Even on a Sunday evening or a Monday to actually have something that breaks down the games that week. So here's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whatever it is. Then you can just show your fans and followers, here's what we're going to be doing this week, or maybe here's just our home games. We would love to have you attend these games. And then, of course, the call to action is the tickets, or come see us. Or
Yep.
if there's
Buy
events that you're
tickets
doing,
now.
yeah, exactly. Or something
Mm.
specific where it may be a whiteout, where you're letting them know, hey, we're actually doing something a little different, or that kind of stuff. So those are some of the things that I would always recommend when you're trying to promote an event and get it going. Never be afraid to not post something on, multiple days, even if it's for the same event or events.
So you could promote the same thing multiple times, but you've got different templates inside a box out where it doesn't look exactly the same, like you're reposting the same thing over and over again, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it's exactly right. So since there's so many different looks, and we kind of do it in a designer series, so we have a bunch of different templates from score updates to game days to player spotlights to headlines that all have a general look to them. So that way you
Hmm.
could take that look and use it a different day. Or we have so many other graphics that are just there that you can get creative work, like we've mentioned in the MILB space. So yeah, and we keep adding more and more because we want to add more value without really having to change the overall price.
So integrations, I've read online that you are integrated with a few different things to make it even easier for teams. You want to talk a little bit about your integrations?
Yeah, I mean, one of the coolest ones we have is actually with a digital ticket provider called Hometown Ticketing. I know they're really, really big in the high school space, even fairs, and they also have some in the college space as well. But what we've done with them is to say, how can we take the data that already is in their system, so their APIs that provide the opponents, the score, the venue, time, date, location, those types of things. And rather than going into box out and typing those things in manually, just grabbing all that content and slurping it in a box out, and it would automatically create the graphic for you. So again, when we talk about speed, Notre Dame saw
Mm-hmm.
a 33% increase in graphics posted quicker. This allows it to go even faster, where now you're not even typing anything in manually. It's just taking all that data and saying, here's your time, here's your opponent. So it'll grab the opponent's logo, their mascot name. If it needs it, it's got their primary and secondary colors. All that stuff is done. And then from
Mm-hmm.
there, when they click share, we automatically include that ticket URL that we kind of touched on earlier in the post. So now
Hmm.
that they don't have to go and say, all right, copy, the post, put it into, the Twitter or Facebook or whatever it is, Instagram post. It'll actually have that hyperlink right there where they can just click on it. And then they're
Hmm.
actually, the call to action says, here's the ticket link to buy. So it does that. So it'll do it one off, but then we actually took it one step further to say, to your point, since you can't post about an event, just once or twice, you can't post enough, go crazy. So we said, all
Hmm.
right, let's do a feature called campaigns where we'll take that event that they have. It could be a home opener, big conference game. And they'll say, this is the game I want. And they'll say, all right, well, what do you want the graphic to look like? I kind of like this look. It'll take all that and then take the information and plug it in and then create a campaign where it will automatically post graphics 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out from that event throughout the course of the season. Yeah. So that way it makes it really cool. And again, has it in the hyperlink in there. It'll also, the way we do it, it does it in 3 different sizes. So we already have a 16:9 for Twitter or Facebook, have a 4:5 for Instagram, and then a 9:16 for like story sizes. So that way,
Hmm.
when you share it, it's going to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, your reels, your Instagram stories, your Facebook stories. So it's going 5 places at once in the correct size. So people can actually create almost 21 graphics in 10 seconds that will automatically
Wow.
share and post. So that way, again, we don't have to worry about it, right? It's going to
Hmm.
automatically do the promoting for us. And then that way, from an integration standpoint, SIDs or athletic directors, they're just scanning tickets the day of the game. They're not having to worry about, hey, please scan this QR code, download the app, that kind of stuff to do it. Everything's proactive in that regard too. And so we can do with that, we give them custom QR codes. So not only do they see the link, but they can scan it if they want to. That'll take them right to where it is. So a lot of really, really cool things. So that really is the biggest integrated partner that we have in this space.
Hmm.
But again, we're not just limited. We can kind of do it with many others, but Hometown is who we have it with now, and we're really excited to partner with them.
Yeah, that one's fantastic. Just thinking about that, if I work for a team and I have hometown ticketing and that my role is to do the social media, few clicks, I can schedule everything out. And it's like, okay, that's done. I don't have to cut out and delete backgrounds and I'll have to do all this stuff. It's already done and it's already scheduled and it just makes life so much easier. Now I can focus on these few other things. So when the boss says, hey, how are we promoting this specific event? I could say, well, here's our scheduled posts. Here's when they're already scheduled. Here's the links. And it's already done. So it just makes life easier and actually makes the media relations person, SID person look better because their job's
Oh yeah.
done.
Yeah, and that's what we want to do, right? We want the
Hmm.
athletic director or the superintendent of the school to be like, "Man, I don't know what you're doing. You must be up till
Hmm.
midnight." And be like, "Hey, I'm doing the best I can, right?" But it's like took me a minute or two. So yeah, I mean, go ahead and play that card. Let Box Out do the work, and you guys can take 100% of the credit.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. So what's next? So you work with a lot of colleges and universities. You work with a lot of teams in minor league sports. What you covered hockey, soccer. What are some leagues that you're starting to work with a little bit more? And then what's next from a technology perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, really, we try to create as many templates for each sport uniquely, so that way we have content that is specific to volleyball and baseball, of course, like you've mentioned with MILB. There's tons of graphics for football, so I mean, there's a lot of opportunities out there, especially with hockey and even lacrosse and rugby as those sports just continue to just grow like crazy. We want to make sure that we have a lot of really good content to help them. But
Hmm.
even like looking forward, how can we take our partnership that we have in like the digital ticketing space to automatically create those graphics? How can we do that for just regular game days and birthdays, right? So again, when you're talking about, man, I got to do hundreds of birthday graphics, how can we make that process a little bit easier? So we're going to try to look at how we can take the technology that we developed with our integrated partners and actually apply it to a lot of the graphics so those can be actually digitally done faster and easier without having to put in any data manually.
Hmm.
So that's what we kind of want to do, as well as things that aren't maybe sports specific. So, there's a lot of local ad agencies here that we see a need that we've just spoken to. They're highlighting their partners. How can we make more templates maybe that aren't sports specific, that can kind of put maybe us in a different area? I just love the sports space, but I know there's a lot of
Hmm.
SID like responsibilities for people not in sports that
Yep.
need a need too. So there's one man shops at other companies outside of the realm of athletics that have the same problem. So how can we meet those? Those are kind of the things that we want to do, and not just limit ourselves to just this space. So that's probably what it is. But we just love that, for us, we don't have a board of directors. We don't have, people that we are having to answer to. And that
Hmm.
just makes it a lot easier when you don't have, venture capitalist money. We can essentially have a long runway where we can just serve
Hmm.
the SIDs and ADs, and then kind of go with wherever the wind takes us and whatever the need may be, rather than saying, hey, you got to make sure have 10% or 15% growth. And we can say, you know what,
Hmm.
we know this, we know the SIDs, we know the athletic comms people and what they're up against. We're going to just focus on them rather than, answering to people who want to see an increase in sales.
Yeah, and that's oftentimes what happens with venture capital and private equity is they're
Oh
they're
yeah.
all about making money. I mean, we're starting to see that in a lot of different spaces, even now in the sports space for sure. So, integrations for other ticketing softwares, is that something you guys are exploring?
Sure. I mean, we always say we're open to any and all business opportunities, and we don't want to
Hmm.
strap somebody from not having an opportunity to best serve their customers. So yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that we can, almost make Box Out a hub that maybe people can latch onto. So yeah, we never want to just limit ourselves for sure.
So, if a university, a college, a sports team's interested in testing out Box Out, so you're offering a free trial?
Oh yeah, I mean, so we always want you guys to kick the tires. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
we offer a free 14-day trial where they can go in and they can just use it right away. So they could go to boxoutsports.com, create a login and use it for 14 days to kind of see if it work, how can it help us, and then from there, they can just let us know, hey, you know what, we want to subscribe to either a monthly or an annual subscription, and we can of course help in this weird time before next season starts. We always want to make sure that we can give that to them right away and delay billing until after July 1 when many people's budgets reset. So how can we give this to you now so you can use it to kind of get ready and get excited for the 24-25 season rather than having to wait around. So we even know that. So we said, you know what, let's just activate the account rather than having it expire after 14 days. Let them use it, and then they're off to the races and starting to highlight things that are happening leading up to next year.
I love that the helpful nature and the down home demeanor that you and the team take, because it's really like you're just trying to help teams. And that if that means flexible billing, if it means a budget price that's so low that you look at it and you're like, that can't be right. That's what I love and so much enjoy about Box Out Sports. You guys are so easy to work with. The templates are easy to use, great customer service. You just hop in there and everybody just wants to be helpful.
Yeah, and we try to look after the little guy, right? So they're
Yep.
like, "Hey, you know what? Like the way it won't work. Like I can't swing anything over $999 I can use, but after that, I have to get approval from that. So it's like, so let's just send two invoices that are smaller than that, and not have to worry about it, and do it like quarterly or whatever it is. And they're like, oh man, that would be amazing. So yeah, I mean, we just want to make sure that we can flexibly work with them because I mean, I'm a true testament to know small budget, I know how it is. So we want to make sure
Mm.
we return that favor because we've lived it.
Well, Robbie, it's been a joy and a pleasure getting to know you, talking all about Box Out Sports. I'm going to put a link in the show notes so folks can kind of click through, check out Box Out Sports, take advantage of the free trial. And this has been marvelous, but appreciate everything that you do for the sports space just to make it easier and better for teams. So thanks to you and the Box Out team.
Yeah, happy to help, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on.